Now, this Goodyear blimp and her three sister ships are used almost exclusively for advertising and publicity. But they are the last in a line of what was once a grand design, the airship age.
In July 1900, Count Zeppelin flew his first airship over Germany. Zeppelin had dreamed of a transatlantic airship passenger service. He was to die before that dream was fulfilled. But by 1914, using highly inflammable hydrogen, Zeppelins had flown over 100,000 miles around Europe without a single fatal accident.
It was always an adventure. It was rather an inflammable arrangement, but the size of the ship gave you a complete feeling of safety.
I think some of us began to have doubts because there have been so many appalling airship disasters in the past. And the final disaster was the Hindenburg.
The first great airship, Catastrophe, was a giant dirigible built in England in 1921 on order for the American Navy. It crashed into the Humber River in England on one of its early test flights.
Eight years later, another English ship, the R-101, played one of the most tragic roles in airship history. During a series of test flights, it was found that the airship was very heavy and very difficult to handle. So what they did was they split the ship right in half and made it 40 feet longer.
While the alterations to increase lifting power were being made in the huge hangar at Cardington, pressure was put on the design team by Air Minister Lord Thompson. He ordered the airship to be ready for a prestigious flight to India within a few months. At just after 2 in the morning, she crashed into a hillside 50 miles north of Paris, a point only 359 feet above sea level. The highly explosive hydrogen in the bays burst into flame. In the twisted wreck, Lord Thompson and practically the entire airship design team lay dead. Two died later from their injuries. The widow of the captain of the R-101 recalls the moment of their parting.
My very last memories of Bird as he said goodbye to me, and he just turned round and gave one little gentle salute.
Of the R-101 marked the end of the rigid airship in England. But the Americans continued their construction. It was, in fact, a golden era for the American airship program, and the first and only time that the German lead in airships was threatened. Now, it all started in the early 20s when, using the plans of a German Zeppelin captured during the war, the United States Navy built its first airship.
She was named the Shenandoah and was the first ship to be inflated with non-explosive helium, which was only available in the United States. When she went into construction...
Cargo ship in September of 25, in which she came to use. When we ran into this rough weather over Ohio, Captain Langsdowne sent me up into the keel of the ship, and I had no more than reached the top of the ladder from the control car into the keel when the break occurred. I was fortunate enough to be far enough away from the break that I could hold on to the structure when it occurred. But I heard and saw this break, and
to control it and miraculously landed safely 2 hours later. There were 29 survivors out of a crew of 43. However, the crash of the Shenandoah did not deter the United States. $8 million were appropriated to build 2 more airships. The first to be completed, the Akron, was one of the largest and most beautiful ever built. But bad luck plagued her. She was harassed by the press and badgered by Congress, critical of her escalating costs. Congressmen invited for a ride, watched as she left her hangar. A brisk wind caught her, carrying some of the ground crew with it. The airship hit the ground with a sickening crunch. The Akron was so accident-prone that when it was announced she would depart for the West Coast, the newsreel companies alerted their cameraman in the expectation she would crash. A cameraman was on hand when she attempted to land near San Diego with an inexperienced ground crew. The Akron began to rise before an aft line could be attached. 3 sailors failed to let go, and when the ship rose, the newsreel camera recorded these terrible scenes as 2 of them fell to their death. In 1933, a thunderstorm off the coast of New Jersey pushed the Akron into the sea. This and other catastrophes in both England and America ended their airship programs. Germany had, however, successfully flown around the world with their hydrogen-filled Graf Zeppelin.
It's really amazing the way the Germans had no fear whatsoever of their power.
Dr. Eckner's prediction was accurate. 1 year later, in 1936, the Hindenburg was pushed out of the canyon. Chose the name Hindenburg before the Nazis were able to call it Hitler, which he painted on the tail surface. After occupying the Rhineland that spring, Hitler asked the Germans for their plane in a lounge where a mass was held on Sunday. The Hindenburg even carried its own post office, and the expansive freight compartments were equipped to carry any kind of cargo. For a brief time, proud and majestic airships promised to provide comfortable, quiet, relaxing, and safe transportation to any corner of the globe. Was always scheduled for 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night, never at any other hour. Water ballast was dumped when lift was needed. When it rose too fast, hydrogen was valved off to enable it to maneuver to the top of the 75-foot mast. That afternoon, a young radio reporter from Chicago, Herb Morrison, was in Lakehurst to describe the arrival of the giant dirigible. The broadcast would make radio history.
Well, here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. That's a marvelous sight, a thrilling one. The sun is striking the windows of the observation deck on the eastward side and sparkling like glittering jewels on a back.
The airship circled Lakehurst until the storm let up. Now, nearly 13 hours late, she approached to land.
Coming down out of the sky, pointed directly towards us and toward the mooring mast. It's starting to rain again. The rain had slacked up a little bit. The fast motors of the ship are just holding it. It bursts into flame. It bursts into flame and it's on the way. It's rising terrible. Oh my, it's bursting into flames and it's falling on the mooring mast and all the folks that breathe it. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's place 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground. All the humanity and all the planets are screaming around here. I told you, I can't even talk to people and friends are out there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying there, massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry. Honestly, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside where I cannot see it. Tony, that's terrible. Listen, folks, I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I've lost the voice. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed.
Stop a minute, and I ran down to the scene. One man had jumped and was walking out of the flames, and his clothing was all on fire. Every bit of his clothing was burned off. I think his shorts were about the only thing that hadn't, at that moment, burned, and his arms blistered and everything, and just completely blistered. The lobes of his ear burned off. All his hair was burned off. Eyelashes burned off. So he was coming toward me, so I ran around him and remembered as a Boy Scout that the least likely place for him to be burned would be under the armpits. So I reached around behind him and got him under the armpits and started to lead him away from the fire. I saw an ambulance coming down, and I flagged it down, and they loaded him in the ambulance. But before he did, I heard a girl scream, and she said, "Oh, is he alive?" And she just couldn't grab him by the arms, you know, to see if he was alive. So I had to take my hand like this and hit her on the chin, send her spinning down in the sand. And her husband, I found out later, came and picked her up. I said, "Don't touch him. You'll kill him if you break those blisters." And they went in the ambulance up, and then I went on and resumed the broadcast.
During this period, to have heard the screams of all the people that were on the ship and seeing people fall out, some of them jump out, was nothing but horror.
There were survivors. In fact, there were 35 died in the crash, and one of the ground crewmen.
Right.
62 people lived through it, which was a remarkable, miraculous thing.
And so on that rainy May afternoon, the airship passed into oblivion, like the giant dinosaurs they resembled. Germany had been the only nation to produce commercial and military airships with any measure of success. But even she was forced to scrap her entire program in favor of the airplane. You know, the world will probably never again thrill to the sight of a quarter-mile-long aluminum ghost drifting across the sky.
When Havoc Struck concludes with this afternoon's episode, be sure to join us next Sunday at 5 when we present a spectacular look at the world that results in the birth of a new human being. Nova, the Miracle of Life, next Sunday at 5.